All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going to tackle a massive challenge that pretty much everyone in business and tech runs into. How do we make sense of really complex stuff? We're going to break down a super powerful method for doing just that, something called Exploratory Domain Discovery. And it really is all about the art of making smarter, strategic decisions.
So, first up, the complexity conundrum. I think this is a problem that's going to feel, well, very familiar to anyone who's ever worked on a big project.
I want to kick things off with a question that I am pretty sure we have all asked ourselves at some point, right? Probably after a really long meeting or a project that just completely went off the rails. Why do we get these huge, messy, complex projects so wrong so often?
And the symptoms, I bet you've seen them firsthand. You get these misaligned teams where everyone kind of has a different picture in their head of what they're supposed to be building. And that, of course, leads to tons of wasted effort, building features that don't really matter. But maybe the worst part of it all is that we totally miss the crucial unseen patterns that are hiding right there in plain sight. You know, the stakes here are just incredibly high.
So what if there was a better way? A way to see those patterns before they cause all those problems? Well, that brings us right to our next section, and a totally new approach, a technique called EDD.
So what is this thing, Exploratory Domain Discovery, or EDD for short? Well, think of it as a collaborative tool designed to get the right people in a room to map out a problem. But here's the game-changing part. It uses a technique called backwards stepping. So instead of starting at the beginning and trying to build your way forward, you work backwards from the end goal to find the domain's one true core concept.
And that whole idea leads us right to its core philosophy. Now, this might feel a little counterintuitive at first, but trust me, it's absolutely brilliant. Go backwards.
Yeah, this slide just lays it all out perfectly. Over on the left, you've got the traditional path, right? A straight line from start to finish. We just build features one after another, kind of hoping we end up in the right spot. But the EDD path on the right, it flips the whole script. It starts with where you want to end up and works backward in this cycle of exploration. And the whole point is to find that main point, the core idea first, before anyone writes a single line of code.
And check out this quote from the method's creator, Masoud Bahrami, which just nails the mindset. By narrating a domain's history in reverse, we're not just builders anymore. We become investigators. We're like detectives looking for clues, trying to uncover those hidden circular patterns to find the one central idea that everything else just revolves around.
See, this whole go backwards thing works because it's built on a few really smart beliefs. First, that complex systems aren't just random chaos. They have these recurring cyclical patterns. Second, that most of the noise, all that extra information we get bogged down in, it's really just context for one single main idea. And this is the big one, that this main point is what's driving all of that context. If you can just find it, you can understand the entire system.
Okay, so that's the theory, and it sounds pretty powerful, right? But how does this actually work in practice? How do you do it? Let's get into the nitty-gritty of the process.
So the process kicks off by looking for clues. Your first step is to hunt for cyclical, time-related patterns in whatever domain you're looking at. So think about things that repeat on a regular schedule, like quarterly financial reports or annual contract renewals, or even monthly pay cycles. These recurring events are your entry points. They're the first breadcrumbs on the trail that's going to lead you to the core of the domain.
Once you find a pattern to start with, the EDD method is actually really structured. First, like we said, you start from where you want to end up and work your way back. Our really key rule here is to maintain a consistent level of abstraction. That way you don't get lost in the weeds. The whole thing is super collaborative. You have to talk through and document everything as a team. You capture concepts and then, and this is so important, you provide concrete real-world examples for everything. And finally, you narrate the story you've built both forwards and backwards, just to make sure it holds up from every angle.
This table does a great job of showing the building blocks of the model you're creating. In one of these sessions, you're identifying domain concepts like a booked room in a hotel system. You're grounding it with a real-world example like a booking confirmation, so there's no confusion. You're defining the business rules that control it, and all along you're on this constant hunt for that one main point, which in this hotel example is actually just the hotel room itself. Everything else is just context for that one central idea.
Okay, so you go through this whole process, you build this amazing model. What's the actual strategic payoff? Why is this a better way to do things?
Well, the benefits directly attack the very problems we talked about at the start. EDD forces you to get the right people talking at the very beginning. By visualizing the problem space, it creates this incredibly powerful shared understanding. This laser focuses everyone's effort on the core of the problem, not all that noisy stuff on the edges. And what you get in the end is a solid model that can actually back up high-stakes strategic decisions because you know it was built on a deep, collective understanding that was tested with real examples.
And all of this really brings us to the main takeaway from this whole philosophy. It's like having a new North Star to guide you whenever you're trying to navigate complexity.
If you only remember one thing from this whole explainer, please make it this: the main point is the main driver of its context. Our biggest mistake is so often getting lost in all that contextual noise. This approach teaches us to find that central driving concept first, because once you've got that, everything else just starts to fall into place around it. And that leaves us with one final question for you to take back and think about in your own work. As you look at the complex projects and the systems that you're a part of, just ask yourself this: what's the one main point you're missing?